Thank you very much, program directors, Deputy Minister Peace Mabe, no MEC Sibulele Gonko, Mandi Bulise O Premier Oscar Mabuyani, and thank you, Premier, for the introduction. Siyabulela, dear. I'm sure Comrade Chris Lalele Kona will appreciate what you've just said. Wenza umsebenzi omuhle kakhulu. Siyabulela, dear. Greetings to Minister Mackenzie, the viable minister, vibrant minister of sport, arts and culture, Ntate Mackenzie. Ke rata o dumedisa Ausi Dimpho, umama phakathi. The daughter Lindiwe Neo, who's not here with us, and the entire Hani family and relatives. Mandikhahlele Nkosi Mathanzima, abathembu baseGhode, Dalimvuli. Ndikhahlele bonke ukumkani abakhonapha namhlanje. Ministers, deputy ministers who are here present, Executive Mayor of Chris Hani District Municipality, Councillor Lusanda Sizani, Mayor of Insika Yethu Municipality, Councillor Khanyisa Mdlele, and all mayors and councillors who are here present. I've seen the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni, Dr. Kagaza, who come from the place where Comrade Chris Hani was laid to rest. Mandibulise, all members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC who are here, National Chairperson of the SACP, Comrade Tulas Nesi, Comrade Mike Shingange, First Deputy President of COSATU, and all leaders of COSATU who are here, political parties who are here, amalunga wonke we-ANC, SACP and COSATU, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, abantu bonke baseMpuma Koloni, molweni. Mandeze ngolu hlobo, ndeze njengodiya, ndizawukhumsha. Ndenzela ukuba basive izolonke jikelele. Program directors, today we stand at the foot of history as we mark the 32nd anniversary of the assassination of a distinguished freedom fighter, a revolutionary, Martin Tembisile Hani. What makes this commemoration more special is that we stand on the sacred grounds of Sibalele village, the birthplace of Martin Tembisile Hani, who at a young age walked barefoot with dreams that dared to defy the cruelty of apartheid. Today, the world has come to know Martin Tembisile as Chris Hani, a revolutionary, a commissar, a commander of Umkhonto weSizwe, General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, member of the ANC National Executive Committee, a leader of the workers, a parent, a husband, a martyr, whose blood cleared the way to the 1994 democratic breakthrough. The assassination of Comrade Chris on this day in April 1993 by Janus Wallus marked a pivotal moment in our transition to democracy. As the killers aimed to plunge the country into civil war, however, despite the pain, the anger of our people, the death of Comrade Chris Hani united the majority of our oppressed people in their pursuit for freedom and democracy. Remarkably, on the 27th of April 1994, South Africa held its first non-racial election to end the apartheid system. The ANC seized a date from reluctant apartheid government leaders who were resisting this reality by creating excuses and inflicting violence on innocent people in trains, in buses, in taxis, in workplaces and communities. Today, we can enjoy the fruits of hard-earned freedom thanks to the contribution as a sacrificed mortal amongst many selfless martyrs, such as Solomon Mahlangu, who was hanged by the apartheid regime on the 6th of April 1979 for no crime other than his love for his people and freedom. Program directors, on the 24th of April 1993, 14 days after the assassination of Chris Hani, 4 days after his funeral, another giant of our struggle succumbed to stroke. That was none other than Oliver Tambo, who led and commanded the army both Chris Hani and Solomon Mahlangu belonged to, Umkhonto Wesizwe, MK. Comrade Chris Hani was a comrade whom O.R. Tambo revered and respected. He had saved him from the wrath of a military tribunal by doing the unthinkable. He chose to speak for the timid and voiceless in Umkhonto Wesizwe ranks, risking his life to save the movement, even if it meant sacrificing his own life in the face of that tribunal. Comrade Chris was known for his bravery and readiness to take most difficult tasks of them all. So this too was of no surprise, because he joined and led the march of distinguished soldiers that he had just returned from another difficult mission, the Wankie operation in Rhodesia, which ended with him being arrested and served a sentence in Botswana. But he was later released after the intervention of the leadership of the African National Congress. We must in particular thank Comrade O.R. Tambo at all times for this intervention. Malibongwe igamalaga Oliver Tambo Malibongwe. Comrade Chris Hani was the second in command of the Lutuli detachment. Alongside comrades like Lennox Lagu, Basil February, and many others, they crossed the Crocodile River, infested the Zambezi River, infested with crocodiles, but they struck fear into the heart of the apartheid army. As Comrade Chris himself once wrote, and I quote, "The Lutuli detachment was never defeated in battle," close quote. Comrades, as we commemorate the assassination of Comrade Chris Hani, we also honor Comrade Tambo, who led the ANC and the mass democratic movement until his death in 1993. Tambo's death concluded what Martin Luther's prophecy indicated, that a promised land would be reached regardless of those who led the struggle. At all times, we must remember that our freedom was not free. Indeed, on the 27th of April 1994, South Africa reached its promised land. But without notable figures like O.R. Tambo, like Chris Hani, Solomon Mahlangu, but at least we did reach freedom with others who were able to enjoy a little bit of it. Comrade Joe Slovo, Comrade Nelson Mandela, Comrade Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and others. Comrades, we must never allow the rhetoric which suggests that democracy is the worst form of government and that apartheid was better than the democratic state, nor allow some of us as beneficiaries of this huge sacrifice of many fallen martyrs, like Comrade Chris Hani, to discredit democracy through shameful deeds like corruption, stealing from the state and the poor, killing for positions, fight for access to position for selfish interests. Such deeds and posture undermine the sacrifices of those who were at the forefront of our armed struggle. Comrade Chris's greatness did not end on the battlefield. It grew in negotiations halls, in political rallies, in homes of workers and students. At CODESA, he stood not for positions, but for principle. He wore military gears not for glory, but to remind us that the war for justice was not over. The battles he conducted and the victories he achieved in conjunction with his detachment were not merely military triumphs. It exemplified the spirit of no surrender and resilience that we must always embody. Asserting to the world that we were not silenced then and we will not be silenced now. We will fight for justice and prosperity of humanity and lift up the voice of the voiceless and the downtrodden, wherever they are, be it in Africa, Western Sahara, Palestine, and anywhere else in the world. Young people should learn from his character and love for knowledge, which he displayed right from his young days that led him to an ability to complete 2 classes in 1 year and graduating from Lovedale School in 1957. Indeed, Comrade Dia, a brilliant and distinguished scholar. Comrade Chris Hani became a member of the Unity Movement Society of Young Africans while at school. At the age of 15, he joined the ANC Youth League, defying fear and choosing the dangerous path of resistance. Trained in the Soviet Union, fought in Zimbabwe, as I said, the Wanki operation as well. And yet, always, he remained tethered to the South African struggle. He believed that for our country to succeed, we need to stand in solidarity, sharing what we have at all times with others. He believed that any system that society seeks to adopt to address its challenges and bring about changes necessary to create a new, better, and more prosperous society, including his own belief in the socialist system, should not be about big concepts and theories, but rather it should be about shelter for those who are homeless, about water for those who have no safe drinking water. The focus should be on healthcare, a life of dignity for the elderly, overcoming the significant disparity between urban and rural areas, and providing a quality education for all citizens. We have indeed attained political freedom, but we must never be deterred from our journey of attaining social and economic justice. As a nation, we must work together to establish equal opportunities and make sure that resources are distributed fairly within a society in order to advance a more just and equitable economic system. Compatriots, our reality is that we are not exactly where Comrade Chris Hani would have liked us to be as a nation. In many parts of our country, there is still limited and no development at all, translating into high levels of poverty. We cannot sit in our offices while people are challenged with a higher demand for basic services, as well as housing infrastructure, crime, sporadic water interruptions, and sewer spillages. We are very happy, dear, to hear that in this province, including in this village, these issues are being addressed. I would hope that this is happening throughout the country because it must. But we are happy, dear, for leading by example. Program directors, at this point in history in particular, we must ask ourselves questions. How Chris Hani would have tackled these critical issues like the South Africa-United States trading relationships? How would he have responded to the prevailing pandemic of gender-based violence and femicide? Would he have folded his hands in the face of high unemployment and stagnant economic growth, impacting the most vulnerable and destitute amongst us? Was he going to keep quiet while corruption undermines democratic institutions? We all have answers to these questions. As far as I'm concerned, Comrade Chris Hani would never have remained silent on these issues. Many people still live in poverty and lack access to land, with many lacking tools and implements to till the land and participate in the economy, as Comrade Tulas has said. Comrade Chris Hani fought for a society where no one should be oppressed. And the Freedom Charter aims to ensure that land is shared amongst those who work it. We will celebrate this year 70 years of the Freedom Charter. As we speak, government is accelerating programs of land reform by all lawful means, including implementing land expropriation without compensation where is required. Ndiyazi bakhona bangayifuniyo lento. They don't want to hear this word. But program directors, we shall implement these transformative laws bayathanda noma abathandi. Bayafuna noma abafuni. We shall implement. We are intensifying rural development strategies as per the National Development Plan. to create sustainable, equitable, and vibrant communities through land reform, infrastructure development, job creation, and poverty alleviation, focusing also on agriculture and related industries. The best way to honor Comrade Chris Hani today is to ensure safety for all our people, regardless of race, gender, creed, and build a society free from crime, free from gender-based violence, and protection of women from criminals and murderous activities. Let us root out extortionists amongst us and those who continue to exploit our people. Program directors, regarding the recent hike in tariffs or tariff increases by the United States government, indeed, we know that it will have a negative impact on our country and the developing world. But we know that we need to respond quickly to ensure that we protect our auto industries and other industries in our country, including agriculture. Therefore, these tariffs that have been implemented by the new administration in Washington are things that must ensure that we as a country begin to be self-reliant. We must focus on what we can do with our own resources. We have a lot of minerals in this country. Let us use those to beneficiate and build our own industries. But program directors, we remain committed to a mutually beneficial trade relation with the United States. I've heard that President Trump is saying that he's giving a bit of relief for some days. I can't remember what I said, 30 days. Is it 90? He's giving a bit of... We had already said we are going to engage them. I was asked recently, why are we not retaliating and also increasing tariff? I said, no, we want to engage. We want to engage because the US still remain one of our biggest trading partners. So we are going to engage in them, including the president sending a delegation to Washington. So as he's giving us this relief and he's pausing, we would go to Washington. The reality is that trade and tariff wars and protectionism have no winners. It will ultimately plunge the global economy into recession. And therefore, we need to address that. We therefore urge the US to continue engaging with its main trading partners, including Africa, to resolve its trade differences, including with China as well, and other countries, through consultation and mutual beneficial and progressive manner. The important lesson we must learn, all of us, is that we must stand on our feet. We must learn to do things ourselves with the resources we have. If we do so, it will make our economy more resilient and will make sure that indeed we can contribute to the global economic balance that will ensure that there is a better future for all. Comrades and compatriots, in the spirit of Comrade Chris Hani, we also need to find a solution to persistent gender-based violence that is tearing the fabric of our society. We urgently need a solution to protect our children and women who suffer disproportionately from GBVF, as and we know it is a non-healing wound. To eradicate GBVF and help survivors, South Africa is currently tackling the issue through a variety of strategies, including specialized police desk, legislative frameworks, awareness campaign, and community initiatives. But more importantly, we need to ensure that perpetrators are arrested, charged, sentenced to prison. There must be no leniency. We must, program directors, ensure that we take more action to fortify these measures. We also need to address the root causes that is linked to gender-based violence and femicide. I therefore urge all the leaders of our society, wherever they are, to educate and engage communities by raising awareness about gender-based violence and femicide, its impact, and how to prevent it. Furthermore, we must strengthen our criminal justice system to ensure prompt and fair prosecution of those who perpetrate such horrible crimes. There must be justice for Kwekwe and all other victims of gender-based violence. Distinguished guests and comrades, we also need to work together to combat unemployment in our nation. If we can get more people into jobs, we will have contributed significantly to improving the conditions and livelihood of our people, their families, and the country at large. The creation of jobs is a complex matter where both the private sector and government should hold hands and work together. The private sector serves as a primary source of employment, while the government creates an enabling environment and should therefore be our shared responsibility, both government and the private sector. As Comrade Chris Hani has guided us, we need to provide leadership in our society. We must consistently strive to unite people, identify shared interests, and create opportunities for all. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk briefly about the GNU. Now, when I walked in here, the media was trying to ask me about the GNU. So I want to say the following briefly, that the government of national unity has had a lot of challenges in the past, but those did not lead to its collapse. And the reason being that we continue and we will continue to consider the GNU as an agreement not between two parties. It's not the agreement of the ANC and the DA. It's an agreement of 10 parties. And we want to make sure that when we deal with issues in the GNU, we deal with these issues as all parties, all of us, working together, prioritizing the challenges that the people of South Africa are facing, not our narrow political interests. We need to understand that we have reached agreements, and we must respect those agreements. Now, the leadership of the ANC, after what has happened recently, decided that we are going to reconfigure the alliance. We are going to reconfigure that alliance, and we are going to reconfigure the GNU to ensure that We bring other parties on board to work with us, but also to ensure that we discuss this properly with all the parties. We will discuss Comrade Tulas also with the Alliance. Angeke sinishiye emuva. Ndiyazi awuyifuni le GNU. Kodwa ke remind the Comrade Tulas of what Comrade Chris Hani taught us. When we were busy negotiating namabhunu, the oppressors, we were young at the time. You remember, Comrade Tulas, we were young. I think at that time, some of us were in our late 20s. And Comrade Chris Hani said to us, and I don't forget these words, everything I do, I carry these teachings with me. What do Comrade Chris Hani to us? Remember that at some point when you have to cross a river, you will have to ride on the back of a crocodile. You remember Comrade Tulas? Kodwa ke siyayazi crocodile ukuthi is not going to be friendly. Ingakuluma. That's why some of us, when we are accused ukuthi asifuni GNU, or we didn't want the DA from the beginning, bayabhala emaphepheni, Paul Mashatile didn't want the GNU, akayifuni GNU. No, I'm dealing with a crocodile. And when you deal with a crocodile, you must deal with it with your eyes wide open. I'm lying on its back to cross the river. A crocodile, I saw zebe umngani wami. Ndifuna ukrossa lo mfula nje. So that's the teaching of Comrade Chris Hani. Lie on the back of the crocodile to cross the river. The legacy of Comrade Chris Hani will not be reduced to speeches or wreaths. Together with Minister Mackenzie, the Chris Hani Foundation, and the Hani family, we have formed a historic partnership. Ukhulumile Diabuti, it will no longer be about speeches. The annual commemoration of Comrade Chris Hani will now be elevated to a national event. But not only rooted in memory, but in development, in heritage, and the values of which he lived and died for. So this year, we begin by building a sports facility at the local school here in Sabalele. This is not a handout. It is an investment in the youth. Those who will walk in the footsteps of Comrade Chris Hani, who must be given the tools to dream, to grow, and to lead. You know, when King Matanzima spoke earlier, I don't think he was understood. He didn't say Minister Mackenzie is a tsotsi. Because I hear all languages. He said, Minister Mackenzie, we thank you for coming to ensure that we have facilities here. We need sports fields and all these activities so that our young people don't end up in the streets and become tsotsis. Ndikuveka kuhle Nkosi yami. Ndikuveka kuhle. So you are not a tsotsi. you must make sure that we help to develop these communities so we do away nabotsotsi. Shonjalo, Enkosi Matanzi. So, Minister Mackenzie, please make sure that in the next 30 days, you start with this work. I know you very well. You are that man who will always say, "Ons baizani." Ons baizani. Yeah. So, ons khani baizani. Lezinto esizchwapha zizawenzeka. Ons baizani. Program directors, we are also committed to the reparation and reburial of the remains of liberation combatants. Last year, 42 heroes were returned home. Minister Mackenzie was working on that program with Minister Motshekga and others. This, comrades and compatriots, is a work of healing, the work of honor, the work of finishing what Comrade Chris Hani began. Let this moment remind us that the struggle is not over. We must fight corruption with the same fire with which Comrade Chris fought apartheid. We must build an economy that serves the people, not one that excludes them. Let me tell you a little story before I conclude that immediately after the unbanning, Comrade Chris did something amazing. We all say Comrade Chris beku muntu wabantu, man of the people, but I know it because Comrade Chris says to me one day, he says, Comrade Paul, you know, some of the comrades who fell in battle during the struggle came from Alex. And he says to them, I want to go and see their families. So I said, no, that's fine, Comrade Chris, let's get their names. So we did. I think at that point it was 3 families. So one of the days, at the time, I was working for the UDF for being ne moto nyana bati bayibizandle moto kanye Cresida. Yeah, one of those cars. So I called Comrade Chris and I say, let's go to Alex. So I was driving. So I go with Comrade Chris, and then we get to Alex. Then Comrade Chris says to me, you know, Comrade Paul, I can't go to those family and bunch. We know Comrade Chris didn't like to wear jackets. So I said, no, you know, my flat is not far from here. Let's go to my flat. I'll borrow you a jacket. Indeed, so I went into the house, brought a jacket, and Comrade Chris wore the jacket, and we went to visit those families. That was Comrade Chris Hani. So, Leon is a man of the people. It's not a theory. It was practical, and some of us know it because we lived and worked with him. And this is one of the small stories I thought I should share with you. I'm now concluding. Program directors, we must honor his name not only in words, but with work, with compassion, with bold and urgent action. We must build a country that many struggle icons dreamed of. So I support fully. I discussed this with our Paul and the minister that we are going to make sure that these kind of events are held all over South Africa. beginning next year. But Ausidimpo, a matter that was raised by almost all speakers, is that of the inquest. And I want to assure you once again that the Minister of Justice will soon report to me and the President on how this issue of the inquest is being handled. And we'll keep the family informed. Comrade Tulas, Comrade Dimpo raised it with me sharply when I went to the house during the time when Janus Walus was released. The President asked me to go and brief Comrade Dimpo and the family before he was released, because Batis Kwebosaki is pelile and he's not a South African Melahambe. So I went to see Ausidimpo. Lindiwe was there, and I brought these news. And Lindiwe, as usual, criticized me, as usual, Nyamas. But at the end, he said, Ausidimpo said, thank you for having come to tell us at least. But I want closure. That's what Ausidimpo said. I want closure, so that inquest must happen. And fortunately, I came to the house with the Minister of Justice that day. And Minister of Justice says, Ausidimpo, itla etsahal. So we will get the report and we'll report back to Ausidimpo and the family. And we will make sure that this matter is prioritized, not only for Ausidimpo and the family, but for all South Africans who have been wanting to know the truth so that they too can have closure. With those few words, I want to thank all of you. Ndiyabulela kakhulu ukufumana elithuba. Nitaskole kanjani? Nitaskole kanjani? Ole kanjani? Amabhuna bulalu Chris. Nitaskole kanjani? Nitaskole kanjani? Amabhuna bulalu Chris.